What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar, what's going on with other factors involved in the markets, and what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I begin the double this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 7 free stocks. The offer is very soon, in just about 2 weeks. Anyways, today is Mother's Day. I want to give a lot of honor to all the mothers out there. Always remember that most women can be moms, but not all of them are mothers. And it's very important to remember your mother if you have one. Remember who she is, give her recognition, call her, and try to do something special if you can for her. So I want to just give a big shout out and appreciation for all the mothers out there. I'm thankful for you. Be remembered and never ever give up, guys, on your dreams. Always move forward and just know that you are very, very honored and respected on a day just like this. Anyways, tomorrow is going to be Monday and we have a lot more coming out for the markets. So, right now on SPY, we saw this very, very nice push all the way up to about 522.64. And I was warning everyone that there could be some tight resistance that's coming up. And as a result, SPY did actually dip for quite a bit on Friday. And even during the after hours, it actually dipped below 520. So that is a sign of weakness that we're starting to develop. So we will see if this leads to anything bigger. So I'll be breaking down more details about these charts in just a couple of minutes. But let me first talk about something for the markets. So right now, the Dow has jumped for more than 100 points for its eighth consecutive winning day, and it's the best week of 2024 for it. With the market pushing up higher, not to mention the S&P 500 and other stocks out there, other indices. It's very awesome to see them pumping the way they are, but you have to remember, as much as they are pumping, okay, they're approaching some very, very tough resistance. And the resistance levels tend to be very, very tricky. They tend to be very tough for SPY to break. And that's why it's very important to be careful as we approach these levels. So, with that happening, right now, there's even more data to note that's coming out for tomorrow. So make sure you guys are ready for Monday, May 13th, 2024. It's going to be tomorrow, 30 minutes before the market opens at 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Jefferson and Mester from the Fed giving their speeches. And then at 11 o'clock a.m., we have the consumer inflationary expectations. At 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the 3-month and 6-month bill auctions coming out. So most of the data should be out for the first 2 hours of the day tomorrow, and we'll see what this causes in the markets, if there's any more volatility or not. And then for Tuesday, right? For Tuesday, that's going to be the day after tomorrow. We have PPI data coming out before market open and Jerome Powell giving a speech. We will see what Jerome Powell says about PPI and what his view is on inflation. I'll be paying very close attention to what he says, and that could cause some volatility. And then for Wednesday, we have CPI coming out. So CPI is going to be very important as well. It's going to affect if this trend continues and which way the market goes. So Tuesday and Wednesday will be very important. Tomorrow has some important data, but it's not like insane. So we will see how things go from there. For other things, the last thing I'll talk about is just earnings before I start breaking down the charts real quick. For Monday, we have a tendency of being, not really having as many crazy earnings. We just have like Stone and very, very minor ones, if anything. Going into Tuesday, we have like the Home Depot and Alibaba and a few others like Sony. For Wednesday, we have Monday.com, Dole, and a few more. Then we have more retail like Walmart, JD, and John Deere for Thursday. And that's pretty much it. Lots of retail, but very, very minor earnings overall. Nothing is that insane compared to like an Apple week or a week with Amazon. It's all very, very minor. Just wanted to note that. As far as the market goes, I just wanted to call out more details. I just want to make it very clear that right now, SPY has resistance at this 520 area. If we manage to break back above this, I'll be watching 521.5. If that breaks, we could get very close to 523. Maybe not exactly there, but we could get very close to that area. But remember that as long as we're above 520, we are at a critical level because SPY has some very, very tight resistance. And as you guys could see, as soon as we hit that 520 area, as soon as we broke it, we saw a nice pop and drop. And SPY kind of struggled to hold above it, even like during the after hours, it started selling off. So the bullish case would be the levels I called out as resistance. If we are bearish and we lose 520, we could be dipping all the way down to 518, which is where we have this previous resistance, which is going to become support on SPY. And this is going to likely align with our 20 EMA, which is probably going to curl towards this area. So I do see a risk of this kind of dipping a little bit and maybe trying to rebound or not temporarily. But then don't forget that the overall trend could be shifting because like I'm trying to say, if we are dropping on SPY, if we're on a downtrend, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to be red every single second. We could like drop a bit, rebound a little bit, drop a bit, and rebound. And the same thing is with the uptrend, right? If you look at the uptrend, with the uptrend right here, we basically were down here. We pushed all the way up to about 518, dipped all the way down to 515. Then we continued up higher towards 523. Now we're kind of like slowing down a bit. So right now, SPY technically is in an uptrend, but we're not officially confirming a rejection yet. But there are some signals that suggest that that could be happening. So if SPY is about to reverse, you want to watch for something like this. So if we were to dip here, let's just say we come to this 518 area, we have a confluence of support over here. That's where we have this 20 EMA is going to be curling upwards towards here. Then we have this previous, resistance becoming support. So that's going to be a key level in my opinion. We have lots of confluences of support. If we get a bounce off this, which I think is very possible, do we establish a lower high? Because if we break this high like this, then we could continue to uptrend. But if we get a rejection, like once we get a little rebound and we start sinking, then that could be a sign that this is about to start reversing and we're just starting to make lower highs and lower lows, right? That's what you're going to be watching for. When I talk about drops, I don't literally mean that the market's going to drop forever, but you have to watch for the trend. All right, so without further ado, let's talk about what I predict is going to happen. So the 4 hour is kind of churning right here, and we also have a bearish divergence that has developed with a potential rejection. So I think tomorrow, the most likely possibility SPY is going to dip a little bit. We could get very close to 518. And then if we do gap down towards that area, we could actually try to rebound intraday, and we'll see if we establish a lower high or not. So I think we're going to likely dip a bit towards 518. We might rebound a little bit. If we establish a lower high, if we don't break this high up here, then we could be looking at a trend change, and SPY could start to actually descend a little bit more. But that is a strong possibility that we kind of gap down. Tomorrow we may test like 518, and we'll see what happens from there. As I reminded everyone earlier, the VIX is at critical support. Okay, the VIX loves to bounce off this 12.5 area. Right now, it's in a very, very critical place, and we'll see what happens from there. If we were to bounce off this, we have 13.24 being our resistance, and we'll see if we get a bounce or not. If anything, I would say that the overall trend has been a little bit weak on the VIX as the market's been pushing up higher, but we're at some key support, and we'll see if the VIX bounces here. Every single time this year did bounce off 12.5, by the way, around that area. So if we do bounce off support like we've been doing this entire year, then that could be a signal that the market is about to get a rejection. So this does kind of like act as another signal that the market may get a rejection soon as well, and that there's a possibility that the top is kind of in, or we're in a topping process right now. We're going to see a little decline very soon. That's the most probable possibility in my opinion. All right, so look for a little dip on SPY, a little rebound, then we'll see what happens after that. And then remember that SPY has a tendency of being very correlated with that of the QQQ. And what you'll find is that the QQQ is in a very critical place. So I drew out some levels for you guys. Our next support is going to be at this 440 area. I also see our 20 EMA is kind of curling upwards, so it's kind of catching up to this green line right here. So it's going to be our support. If we lose that, we could be dipping all the way down to 437 for a bigger drop. Our resistance happens to be just under 442, 441.8, like around that area, just under 442. If that breaks, look for 444 and then 445.63. In my personal opinion, looking at the trend, this is a bearish divergence to QQ showing a little bit of weakness after getting this wick right here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do end up dipping a bit more. I think that we could actually retest this 439 to 440 area, our 20 EMA around that range. We could rebound a little bit and then continue lower. That is a strong possibility in my personal opinion. So I'll be watching to see a little dip all the way down towards 440, maybe a little bit lower. And then we could try to rebound from there. And we'll see if we form like a head and shoulders and start kind of falling like this or not. To be bullish, after it hits this low, you want to see if it breaks this high. So if it breaks this high, we're still bullish like this. But if it establishes a lower high like this and we end up rejecting again, that would turn bearish and the trend would likely shift. Okay, so what do I think is going to happen? In English, in plain, simple terms, I think that the QQQ is going to likely dip a bit. I think that we're going to get very close to our 20 EMA, the 440 area, and then we'll have to see if buyers defend us between 439 and 440, depending on where the 200 EMA is at that time. But it is trending upwards, so it might catch up to 440. Look for a little dip on the QQQ, then see if we get a bounce, and we'll see what happens after that. So that is it for those two, the two main ETFs I typically talk about. How about Nvda? How's Nvda looking? Well, honestly, guys, Nvda is not looking that great. We have resistance at 900, we have support at 892, and then 885, and we have this gap to fill down here. I personally think that tomorrow is going to try to rebound a bit, hit like 901, maybe go a little bit higher, and eventually start dipping down to fill this gap and start dipping to 888 or lower. So look for a little pop and drop like movement, a little bit more downside potential in my personal opinion. On top of all of this, we have Aapl. Apple's also kind of trading sideways within a range, not really doing a whole lot. We did get a little rejection on Aapl, so it's a sign of weakness that I am seeing, but there's no confirmation of it losing its 20 EMA. Tomorrow, I think Apple's going to kind of pop a bit, retest 183.5, just trade sideways. It's just stuck kind of sideways in this range for now. Not really doing a whole lot, so we might just see a lot of sideways price action. We will see if we get a little break or not, because there's a little bit of weakness here with this big bar here. So the odds kind of favor like some shuffling, maybe a move to the downside towards 180. So that looks a bit more probable, but I just want to say right now the main move is just sideways price action. How about Tesla? How is Tesla looking? We have a little rejection structure right over here. We rejected off 200, came down, then we pushed a bit towards 188 around that area. Then we kind of rejected again. And now Tesla's looking kind of very, very bearish right now because you guys can see right here, Tesla has the support at this 167.5 zone. If we were to lose this, 165 is coming, 162.5, then 160. We have resistance at 170, 172, and then higher levels. I personally think that Tesla's looking a bit more bearish right now, especially on the 4-hour time frame. It could kind of rebound a little bit, retest this 170 zone, and then eventually start to sink lower. The trend is still bearish on Tesla, but watch and see how it holds the support. We're at the support right now where it likes to bounce. So we'll see if it bounces, but we could see an attempt for it to rebound just slightly before it may continue lower. But the trend overall in Tesla is still bearish. So look for a little rebound in the morning, might retest 170, and we'll see if it rejects off that and starts sinking to 165 or not. But just know that Tesla is still looking more bearish. There's no sign of it really bouncing yet, and the weakness that's developing is not the best of things for it. For the people interested in like Neo could dip closer to 5 in my opinion. They have a big event called the Envo launch coming on May 15th, so that could cause a little bounce later on. Might dip first to 5, if not 4.8, then bounce. So watch for that. And now I'm going to transition to the rest of the stocks, guys, like Palantir and the others. So if you're interested in all of these, like the rest of like Google and the others, just keep watching the video and just know that I'm going to try my best to be kind of quick, at least with everything, just so I can fit a lot of detail into this. So Palantir is looking a bit more bearish. It might retest 21 and eventually start sinking lower. I think it might be making its way down all the way into the 20 area, so a little bit lower. So a pop and a drop all the way down to 20 is the most likely possibility. For Supermicro, we're looking a bit more bearish because we've been trading sideways. We're kind of downtrending just slightly, a little bit of a downtrend. So I would say that resistance is at 800, then 820. We have support currently at about 790. If we lose this, we're going to be dipping all the way down to this gap fill at 781, then eventually lower levels like 754. I think that we're going to be dipping all the way down to fill our gap in the 750s. Oh, sorry, the gap is in the 780s, and then we could be making our way down to the 750s afterwards. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a dip. Might pop in the morning, retest our 50 EMA at 513, then start dropping down to fill this gap. So watch for that on Supermicro. For Rivian, we were pushing up nicely, but now we're kind of stuck at resistance, kind of turning a bit. So I'm seeing some weakness on the chart. Could retest 10 and then eventually make our way down to 9.77, maybe tip lower, but I do see potential in that to happen. For SoFi has resistance at 7.1. We also have resistance at 7.03. If we do reject here, we could be dipping down to this imbalance at around 6.8. So watch and see a retest of 7. If we fail to break it, we're going to be coming down to 6.8 in my opinion. For the IWM Russell 2000, I called 207 as my target as we had this imbalance to fill. We actually did hit 207, and now we're kind of at some tough resistance. The last time we hit this 207 to 208 area, we did reject hard, so now we're kind of stuck at this area. There's a bearish divergence here, kind of like a rejection that could be forming. Look for a little rebound on this to like 205 and see if it continues to sink. If we lose 203.8, so we're dipping down to like 202. So I see a risk of it dipping lower. A little pop and drop like move and eventually moves to the downside. For AMD is also kind of downtrending, but kind of choppy right now. I think that we could be dipping to fill this gap. So I think 150 is likely coming. If that fails this, I'll be watching for like much lower levels like this imbalance fill towards like 146. So I see a risk of downside. For ARM, we have resistance right here around this 110 area. If we reject here, I'm going to be looking for a move down towards 105. I think it might kind of reject. So look for a test of 110 and a move back down to 105. So be very, very mindful of that. For Coinbase, we're kind of dipping right now. So Coinbase is looking kind of weak. If you look at the overall trend, it's been downtrending. I think it's going to be testing this low here if we fail to hold 200. So we're at critical support right now. If we hold 200, we could rebound towards 210. If we lose 200, we're going to be dipping all the way down to about 193. I personally think that what's going to happen is it's going to rebound a little bit. We're going to see some buyers kind of fight 200, and then we might see it fail and come down to 193. It's looking a little bit weak to me. For Amazon, there's bearish divergence. We're also just barely holding 187. If we lose that, look for 184.93 to 185. If that fails us, we're going to be dipping even lower. But overall, I just want to say that this is looking a bit more bearish. For Meta's kind of turning on the 4-hour time frame. We have resistance at 478. We have support at 472. If we lose 472, we're going to be dipping all the way down to 468. So there could be a little dip coming. And we'll see how things go. It's looking a little bit weaker, at least on the MACD, but we're just stuck within this range. So If you break 478, then look for 480. If we lose 472, we're going to be dipping down to 468. I favor it coming down towards 468, a little bit more. For Microsoft, we're still holding up very well, in my opinion, even compared to the market. I wouldn't be surprised if we go a little higher towards like 415.8. It's still holding up very well. So it could go a little higher towards 415.8 to 417, that area. Then we could get a rejection and start retracing back down to 411. So look for a little pop and then a drop it back down. For Google, Google has resistance currently at this 172 area. We have supports all the way down to 167.8 and eventually 165. I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of pop a little bit and eventually make our way down to about 167.8 and lower levels. So I find that to be very, very probable. For the VIX, we're all the way down towards 12.5. 12.5 is going to be our key support for the VIX right here. We'll have to see if we get a big bounce or not, because I just want to say the 4 hours looking pretty weak on the VIX. But every single time we hit 12.5, we did see the VIX bounce. So I have a feeling that it might get a bounce very soon. It might be making its way back up to its gap fill around that like almost 15 area. If the VIX does get a big bounce here, or if it bounces this week, that's going to be accompanied by SPY potentially getting a rejection, the market getting rejection for the indices and such. So that is what the VIX is kind of pointing towards. There's no confirmation of it bouncing yet, but I just want to give you a warning that every time this year was at this level, right, it did bounce. It happened every single time this year. So there is a risk of SPY getting rejection because of that. We'll be watching for confirmation just to be safe. When Jerome Powell gives his speech on Tuesday, this is going to have a big effect on the 10-year Treasury yield. It's kind of looking bullish now. We're getting a 4-hour crossover on the PPO. If we break 4.52, we're going to be looking for a push for this gap fill at 4.57. It might try to bounce right here. It kind of looks a little bit more like it wants to. It's a little bit more bearish for the markets. And then for the dollar index, it's the same thing. Kind of range bound price action. We have support at 105, resistance at 105.4, kind of trading sideways. If the dollar starts pushing to fill this imbalance all the way up here towards 105.6, that would be bearish for the market. So I'll just wait and see if it bounces or not. It's still kind of range bound. With that being said, in a nutshell, SPY is at tough resistance. 520 to 525 is very tough. The last time it hit this area, it was shuffling a lot. Actually got a big rejection right here. So that's how things are looking, especially as volume has been declining. Similar to this period right here when volume started declining a little bit, that's when we start to see this thing selling off more. So we'll see what happens with volume. We have very dry volume right now on SPY. We're kind of struggling at this area. So we'll see if we get a rejection. I do anticipate it's going to dip a little bit tomorrow. Might try to rebound off 518 or so, and then we'll see if we establish a lower high and continue lower. So that's what I find to be the most likely possibility, and I just wanted to give you guys a warning about that. All right, so anyways, that's it for the video. I know I was trying to not make this too long, but I guess doing a technical analysis sometimes gets me carried away. But it doesn't matter at this point. I just want to say I really appreciate every single one of you for watching these videos. Once again, to all the mothers out there, have a very, very awesome day. I hope you guys enjoy whatever life has to offer. I hope you guys are appreciated. And I just want to make it very, very clear that it's important to respect and honor your mothers on a day just like this. So with that being said, thank you for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one in just not a couple of hours, within a day from now. So I'll be making one more video during the pre-market in less than like 12 hours from now. So I'll see you guys then. Until then, take care, enjoy Mother's Day, and I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you, and peace out.